Hey guys, welcome back to more relationship stories. In this video, my horrific family abandoned me after I was diagnosed with cancer and then comes crawling back years later to steal from me. Here is what happened. Let's dive right into the video. The title story starts like this. To be completely honest, I don't even know what drove my parents to shoulder the cost of a third child when their first two were their perfect little creations. I came along somehow though. My family was not incredibly well off, but they certainly were not poor by any means. According to my parents, the upper middle class was the family's prison. They were obsessed with money in this horribly entitled way. My mother and father both had endless stories of how the world had cheated them of their wealth. They both spoke of their families' lives as a tortured cesspool because their parents were working class just trying to give their children opportunities. My mom was an expert at nickel and diming the house and our food, all for the sake of her wardrobe and vacations. My father negotiated with and cheated his own children when it came to paying us for anything. Us kids were taught that money was supreme over our lives. So my older sister and brother fell in their footsteps. Nothing was good enough for them unless it had a visible brand, and anyone who couldn't keep up with the trends was just trash who they left in the dust. Think Mean Girls with supreme logos instead of pink. I couldn't say what blessed me to not have their same obsession. Maybe it was the few years of vacation my mother missed that led to her resenting me as a young boy. Maybe I could see my brother and sister trying their hardest to not reveal any of the suffering that they felt at the hands of this obsession. Maybe it was as simple as me discovering my passion for fashion and makeup and cosplay. My sister dropped out of college when she met her husband. I've never seen the two of them so much as smile at each other, but his family was old money and my sister never wanted anything more than finding a place in a trophy cabinet. My brother, meanwhile, grinded away at his pre-law all through my high school, and when I started college, he dove headfirst into law school. Meanwhile, I spent a year at cosmetology school and went to a traditional university to major in fashion after I graduated. My work was considered that of the help in my family. They referred to me as such once I started to reveal my passion on social media in high school. Part of the reason I even started with cosmetology school was out of the ever-present fear that they would cut off the financial support that I had to beg and belittle myself for. I was lucky that I had my early followers to turn to. I showed off makeup looks, fashion, and then full-on cosplay looks of characters from various franchises that I loved. There was plenty of hate and not always plenty of praise early on, while I was still figuring it all out. There were also plenty that stuck it out for the long run though, and they were worth it all, especially since I had grown thick enough skin to let all but the sharpest of insults through. Anyway, all this was bad enough when the only disease in my life was just my family. They were horribly abusive to me, but at least they enjoyed holding money over my head to not cut me off yet. But then I got cancer. When I saw that my family was celebrating my brother's first successful case and paycheck, I was starting to feel a pain when I peed. When the third success rolled around for my brother, I was receiving a diagnosis for stage 3 ovarian cancer. He raked in the money and my parents were going to have to turn around and pour it into medical funds for me. Or well, they would have if they felt it was worth the cost. Unfortunately, I was just the deadbeat artsy child who wouldn't pay back any of the crumbs my parents had sent my way in my childhood. So they turned their back on me and I was on my own all of the sudden. Not completely though, I had my followers, I found a salon to work in, and anytime I was not working or in treatment, I was creating content for the steadily growing audience that found my work beautiful and fascinating. Eventually, the treatments were so destructive that I couldn't work at the salon anymore. It eventually got bad enough that I couldn't even continue with my social media presence, which made only enough money to make my medical loans really feel insurmountable. I couldn't step away from my followers without any warning though. I told them and they made me the luckiest woman in the world. They poured money into GoFundMe and before I knew it, I didn't have to worry if I'd even be able to afford the next treatment. I only had to focus on if I could push my body through this horrible abuse. As I'm writing this story, I'm constantly reminded of the fact that I did that. I fought through it. I did it. Anyway, I didn't have the time to finish my education in fashion. However, when I finally rang my last bell, I had something better than a diploma. I had a community supporting me. I opened my boutique using the money that I continued to make off of creating content for my followers. And then I advertised it to them and they spread it to the world where they could. So my boutique centered around renewable fashion for models and cosplay geeks both was built. I don't rake in money and I don't live in a 3-story mansion or something like the one my sister moved into when she married, but I live happily and I'm more than comfortable when it comes to finances. I even use savings and smart investing to prepare myself to build the boutique into an even larger brand in the future. Then I got a call from my mother though. She said, "Your dad is dying and we need your help. Can you send some money?" I had not spoken to her since she turned her back on me. And well, now she comes back and says that I can have their horrible presence in my life again and the privilege would only cost me my entire savings. But then again, he was dying. I could not exactly turn my back on them, or I was just like them, wasn't I? And that was what I lived so much of my life trying to avoid. I asked them, what about brother or sister? My sister had apparently turned her back on the family, my mother had constantly asked for gifts and vacations and even stayed at my sister's husband's houses. The leech had finally pushed my sister's husband to the point where he gave my sister the ultimatum between him and my mom. My sister didn't hesitate. My brother, on the other hand, struggled to get the same success in the courtroom when he was on the wrong side of the system. His firm was sued for corruption and he had positioned himself right in the center of it, so he was stripped of his bar license and most of his wealth in the sentencing. He was the one who found himself confined to one of the old bedrooms in my parents' house, and well, there was plenty of space for him once his gold-digging wife divorced him. There was a spiteful part of me that wanted to turn away and probably would have if a life was not on the line. That spiteful part of me couldn't have won in the long run as things were, but it did enough to slow down my answer until things could change. "Mom, give me a few days, I need to consider some things." I hung up before I could hear much more than the first screeches of pure fury. As I said, the anger and desire for vengeance were fighting a losing battle from the first. Some defect in me had made me care where my family couldn't. One night I was working late at the boutique. It was far from the first time I had done such a thing, but usually it was driven by deadlines instead of insomnia. Indecision plagued my nights after driving me to exhaustion during the daytime. It got to the point that the work was not coming any easier than sleep was, so I finally had to make my way home. When I think back on the night, the first few things I must have seen still elude me. The only thing I know for sure is that I was already on guard by the time I was pulling into my garage. I generally put my car keys in a catch-all plate in my bedroom, but I am not usually holding my pepper spray with its safety undone as I walk through the house. The inner garage door was too easy to open, it usually stuck, things were displaced in the entryway, the kitchen had a lamp on. My cat was hiding beneath the coffee table instead of running to me. When the two men jumped out at me while I was walking down the hallway, my nerves were already frayed to shreds. I don't know what I could have done if they had their gun drawn, but I was lucky that I had not expected a small girl who had been emaciated from cancer a few years ago to have any bite to her. They only had a knife and their own cowardly brute force ready. The pepper spray and a call to the police took care of the idiot goons. I already had my suspicions though. When my mom called and actually tried to sound concerned, I was sure it didn't take much of an investigation to find out the two goons were intended to force me to send my money to them so that it could make its way to my mother. The anger could never have won the fight within me. What I needed was to understand that I wasn't becoming like my parents and turning my back on people who need me. They instead had turned their backs on me so long ago, and this was just me keeping boundaries they had forced on me in the first place. They had wanted to treat me as a stranger and cast me off. I pressed charges on my mother for the conspiracy to robbery and got her tossed in a cell. I don't know if my father is still alive because I don't even check the obituaries where they live anymore. I feel too much guilt if I let myself do that, and maybe what I decided in the end was not the pure and right thing to do, but I've come to terms with the fact that they deserve to live or die by the decisions they made, and it's not my responsibility that they couldn't stand by me when I needed them. And yeah, Ripe Stars, let me know what you think about this story in the comments. Do you think that OP was the a-hole here or not? I'm very curious about what you have to say. The next one is titled, "Am I the jerk for telling my husband's affair baby's family to either come get the kid or I'm calling CPS?" My female 53, soon-to-be ex-husband Roger, 47, whom I forgave for his affair, came home with a baby 4 months ago. His girlfriend, 22, couldn't handle it anymore and brought the baby to him at work and then left. To the best of his knowledge, she is in Spain. Well, I allowed him to stay so long as I didn't have to do anything. However, about a month ago, Roger had a heart attack. It didn't kill him, more's the pity, but he is very weak and incapable of doing anything for himself. Since he is not up and about, he cannot care for his child. He also cannot drop off and pick up his son at daycare. I've been helping, but I'm done. My kids are full grown. I shouldn't be having grandkids anytime soon. I don't have any desire to care for a baby. I told Roger that I want a divorce and I contacted the mom's parents. I know the father through friends though. I said they had until Friday to come get their grandchild, or I was calling Child Protective Services. And well, they just left with the baby, but they scolded me for being so cold towards a baby that had done me no harm. I view that child differently though. Roger is recovering and I'll be moving out. The house is in his name, but I've never contributed to it. I have the equivalent of 22 years of rent and interest put away, and as per our prenup, my savings are my own. I work and I don't need anything out of this marriage except myself. My kids tried telling me to stay and help their father. I said that they were welcome to come over and help him with cleaning himself and the baby. Both declined what I felt was a fair offer. I don't feel that I'm acting badly, however, Roger, our children, his child's family, and a few mutual friends think I am. Perhaps writing this out and seeing the responses will give me clarity. And yeah, Ripe Stars, I gotta say, this is probably one of the craziest stories I've ever heard about. So I'm asking you, what would you have done if you were in this situation? And do you think OP is being the a-hole here or not? I would say OP is clearly not the a-hole. I don't see any universe where she would be the a-hole. Anyway, the first comment said, not the a-hole. That child was not your responsibility. Yes, it was innocent, but you're literally not responsible for raising it. You should have divorced Roger long ago, though. And NOP answered, and God forbid something happens, I literally cannot make any decisions regarding medical care or anything. And a commenter said, fake NTA, seriously, the kid is 4 months old. You could not have possibly forgiven anyone for this level of betrayal if you've been married for decades. It's your house, so get what you're owed. Then OP said, I think the baby is almost a year old. The house was a premarital asset on our prenup. Commenter said, I looked at lots of these comments. OP, you're not the a-hole for returning the baby to blood relatives who can look after it, but don't be the a-hole to yourself by abandoning your home without consulting an attorney and making sure you're not entitled to some of the equity or some of his retirement savings. Don't walk away without getting all that is yours. You said that you have 22 years worth of savings. That's not a lifetime worth. You might need more to be okay, and you should make sure to get it on your way out. OP then answered, I've made a little over $1 million in investments, I'll be fine. He paid for everything, I kept all my money. This comment was downvoted, but OP's reply made me laugh. Someone said, women these days are cold AF. OP answered, I can forward you their info if you're volunteering to take over. And now we got an update to the story. It reads like this. I am no longer divorcing Roger. There were complications from his heart attack and he has passed away. I'm conflicted, to be honest. He was the love of my life and also a cheating piece of trash. To the best of my knowledge, the mother will not return from Europe. The child is currently with her parents. They asked me what I wanted to do. I recommended adoption, not that I adopt the child, that they put the child up for adoption. They did not like that suggestion, neither did my children. They said I'm being cold and cruel. I suggested that since the child was related to them and not to me, that they step up. Neither has accepted that suggestion either. I was the sole beneficiary of Roger's estate, so I imagine lawyers will be involved in getting the child some sort of support. I'll pay whatever is ordered by the court out of the estate. I will not pay 1 cent out of my money though. That's all I have to say on this matter. Relevant comments, ages of OP's kids, they are adults. I found out about the affair over a year ago, nothing about this is convenient. Then a commenter said, so apparently the affair was not that much of a problem as you said you forgave him for that, but after he has a heart attack you decide to divorce him? It just doesn't add up. OP then said, I was not responsible for the child. Commenter, true. That doesn't explain the divorce though. I mean, you can divide for whatever reason, you do you. To me, however, infidelity seems like a better reason to divorce than having a heart attack. OP then said, I was not to care for the child at all, it was all on Roger. Can you explain how a bedridden man was to care for an infant? Commenter, I agree you have zero responsibility to the child, however, if your kids did adopt, how would you feel about that as the baby would then be your grandchild? OP answered, adopted grandchildren are great, to another, new grandchild, I would do my best to treat them as such. Commenter downvoted said, Roger's will may have omitted the child due to the child not being around when it was written. The child should inherit a portion. The child should be eligible for Social Security survivor benefits. Baby needs a lawyer ASAP. OP then said, Roger's will also omitted his 2 adult children. Commenter downvoted said, "You're evil. You wished him dead, and now he is. I hope you at least feel a little remorse for what you said." And then OP said, "I don't. He broke me." Damn guys, I gotta say, OP is an absolute savage, and I've never seen a Reddit thread where the OP is dishing out such savage answers after the story is already concluded. Pretty amazing if you ask me. Anyway, OP responded to another commenter, "We were getting divorced for a reason." Commenter then replied, 70% of the posts here are fake. Yeah, my husband just died and I'm dealing with this child situation on top of it. Definitely gonna post on Reddit. OP responded, "The situation has been dealt with. I was asked by several people for an update. I've now fulfilled those requests." And damn guys, it sounds like OP is working a day job at Reddit or something. These commenters are really demanding. Holy crap. OP then responds to many people telling her she needs to help the kid and says, "Why does anyone think I have the right to place the child with anyone besides family? I'm not in any way related to this kid. And by the way, the child is currently with their grandparents, blood relatives, withstanding in legal matters." Editor's note: to avoid confusion, I created a timeline based on OP's listing of events. So OP found out about the affair a year ago, let's say May 2023, at the time she forgave the husband. In January-ish of this year, 4 months from the OG post, the baby was dropped off, husband promised to take care of the baby, the husband had a heart attack sometime in April, a month before the OG post. Sometime between May and June of 2024, the husband passed away. And yeah, Ripe Stars, I'm not sure if a timeline was really necessary because I understood all the different dates and stuff. But yeah, I gotta say, this thread, more than ever before, really surprised me when it came to the comments. Some of these comments, and I didn't read all of them, were really toxic to OP, who was in an absolutely terrible situation. With her husband cheating, having a baby with another woman, and then the husband even dying. Sometimes Reddit can be heartless. And anyway guys, please let me know in the comments what you think about the story, because I'm really curious about whether or not my community is also so split between you are the a-hole and not the a-hole like the Reddit community. And now let's move on to the next story. It starts like this. I just want to start this off by saying that I understand some people are in bad situations and need to do whatever they can to make money. When a guy though breaks into my property and then tries to sue me, it makes me not feel as bad for him. Let me give you a little backstory about this guy though, so those of you that are lucky enough to never have to meet him can get a clear picture. There is a man that goes up and down the neighborhood the night before trash day and picks up all the bottles and cans that he can recycle for money. On paper, I have no problem with someone doing this to try to get enough money to get by. This guy, however, is well known as a guy that is not homeless and instead just does it to get money to get more beer. So, about 2 to 3 times a week, this guy hits my neighborhood and collects everything he can. The biggest issue for me is that this guy tends to make an absolute wreck of everyone's bins, and I wake up to seeing a ton of garbage laying in front of my house. Which, by the way guys, is not really the purpose of recycling. Anyway, so I tried to just put all my bottles and cans on the top so that this guy might just take them and leave the rest alone. Nope, he still managed to go and dig through the rest of my trash, creating a huge mess. So I figured out a solution that I thought was going to put an end to all of this. I had a gate in front of my house, so what I would do was bring my trash out to the front the night before, but keep it within the gates of my property. Then in the morning I could just move it out the gate for the truck to come and take it away. I honestly thought it was a genius solution and actually thought the can collector would just pass my house and move on his way. Instead, he had another idea that would only come from someone that has drank a little too much that night. I guess I should have hidden the cans a little bit better though, because drunk guy was still able to see them and decided that he needed to get my cans for a few more cents. Now, I know that even without reading the title, most people can imagine a drunk guy trying to hop over a fence is something that just spells disaster. Well, you would be right, because he managed to get hurt climbing back out of my property and getting a deep gash on his leg. I heard the commotion as it woke me up to the sounds of banging and cursing. I could only see him running down the street, leaving a trail of blood along the front area of my house. After that though, I did not see him for a few days and thought that maybe getting hurt was what he needed to learn that there were better ways to get money for beer than collecting cans out of people's trash cans. However, I was wrong when I got a visit from him a few days later where he was surprisingly sober. But I'm still going to refer to him as Drunk Guy for this story. Drunk Guy: I think you should know that I am suing you. He really did not beat around the bush. Me: what are you planning to sue me for exactly? Drunk Guy: I got hurt on your property and that makes you responsible. I had to go to the hospital and pay for everything, including the cut on my leg. The court would make you give me $5,000, but I think that maybe if we would work this out privately. I knew exactly where he was going with this. He just wanted me to give him money now to avoid a lawsuit, even though he could technically still sue me anyway. I knew though that he had no case and told him so before slamming the door in his face. Then I contacted my home insurance agent to tell them exactly what happened and that I was threatened with a lawsuit about it. I did not even know, but apparently my house insurance covered legal fees as long as it turns out that I was in the right in the situation. This was even better, and I waited to see if the guy was going to be dumb enough to try and sue me. Turns out he really was that dumb, and not long later I got the official letter that I was being sued and the date and time to be in court. When I got there, I listened to him telling this whole story of how he was a guest and when he went to leave he slipped on a crack in my sidewalk and that caused his fall. It was actually hard to not laugh as I was listening to this story, but kept a straight face until he was done, and then it was my turn to rebuttal. The only thing that I had to say was that he trespassed to go through my trash and I had proof. And yep, I had the entire thing recorded from a home security system and decided to keep it a secret from Drunk Guy until then. The tape was watched and it was clear as day what he was doing. And the judge was not happy about this guy lying in court to try to get $5,000. The judge told him that going into my property was illegal in the first place and that plus trying to take a phony case to court could have gotten him in a lot of trouble. Apparently, when they looked into him a little more, they found I was not the only person that he tried to sue for the $5,000, which I guess was the maximum amount for a civil suit like this. Now, I know that most people are wondering what happened to him and if I countersued him for the trespassing. However, I actually did not sue him back because I really did not want to deal with the hassle, and I would have to get another lawyer for that, and it was a pain because I know that even if I won any money off of him, he would not actually have any to give me. That does not mean though that he got off totally free without any repercussions. He was told that everyone was being alerted and to be on the lookout for him trying to go through their trash. Turns out that even though the bins are in front of our houses, they are still technically our property and him going through them can be something he would get arrested for. Charges probably would not hold, but enough calls in about him would cause something to happen. I also think the garbage men were sick and tired of dealing with the messes he was leaving and they now had the cause of that. I think he got the message because I have not seen or heard about him in the neighborhood for a good while. I even started putting my bins back out front without worry of him coming and making a mess of things. I don't know to this day if he got arrested for something else, picked another neighborhood or finally stopped and learned his lesson. Either way, he is not bothering me anymore and that is what I consider important.
And yeah guys, if you cannot get enough of my content, please don't forget to check out my podcast by searching for Ripe Stories on all major podcast platforms such as Spotify, Apple or Google Podcasts. Furthermore, you can find bonus content by going to patreon.com/ripeyoutube or by clicking the join button here on YouTube. For a small monthly fee, you will get access to dozens and dozens of exclusive videos you won't find anywhere else. Thank you so much for watching and I hope to see you again tomorrow.